Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If everyone would just remain standing for a moment. First, I'd like to take a moment of silence for remembrance of September 11, 2001. Thank you. And on a more local community level, as everyone knows, we lost a high school senior over the weekend in a very tragic accident. And at this time, I'd like to take another moment of silence to remember him and his family and all his friends and loved ones who are hurting right now. Thank you. I want to thank the Central Office Administration, Principal Rooney and his team for doing all that they've done over the past 24 hours to help in what's been a very difficult time. It's something that you never want to have to do. We never want you to have to do, but it's not something we can afford to do anything less than perfect. And you guys have done a good job in helping through an extremely difficult situation for the high school and the Attleboro Public Schools community. So thank you very much. Welcome to the Attleboro School Committee regularly scheduled meeting of September 11th, 2017. This is your reminder that this meeting is being electronically recorded. Principal Rooney, if you want to come forward, we have our first meeting with our Student Advisory Council representatives, Aiden Lancaster and Dan Perry. If you want to just give another introduction. I know you did in the spring, but sure, it's the fall. It'd be helpful.
Thank you for your kind words, and also thank you for the moment of silence. It was a somber day at the high school, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the Vero family and again all of Nick's friends and relatives. It's always a proud opportunity for me to be here in front of this honorable body to basically showcase the students that we have at the high school and the wonderful work that they do. Dan Perry and Aiden Lancaster are your SAC reps for the 2017-2018 school year. They're both student athletes, and Danny is actually still at football practice as we speak. I'm sure that he'll be coming in shortly. I think this is my fourth year in a row that there has been a Lancaster at the table. Max and Harry both blazed a trail for Aiden to follow in their footsteps, and very supportive out of our high school family. And Danny, his sister, was very involved, and he's got 3 younger siblings that are still in the Attleboro Public Schools. So we're very excited about what Aiden and Danny have in mind. I met with them back in June, met with them again last week, talked with them about their goals and things like that. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Aiden, who is going to take you through their typical around APS update, and he's going to talk with you about their goals and their vision for this year. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rooney. Dan, unfortunately, isn't here at the moment. Well, so I'll just be taking over for his, role in this. Like Mr. Rooney said, this is a presentation centralized around Attleboro Public Schools and the system. So a lot of the stuff that you'll see in these slides are essentially just kind of what's going on with the Attleboro community and what's going on with the Student Advisory Committee. So without further ado. So we have the upcoming early release this Friday for elementary, middle, and high school. There's the back to school night, which we're trying to support more this year, especially with Attleboro and the community coming together as we have in the past couple days. So we're trying to get more students to be involved with helping set stuff up like this, like back to school night, Blue Pride Palooza. So that is our that's our goal for this year, I guess. That's for the elementary schools. Again, the early release is going to be for the elementary, middle, and high school. Curriculum night, September 27th, 6 to 8. Hopefully see you guys there. Next we have the picture dates for picture dates.
Oh yeah. So I'm sorry. Apologize first. I just came back from football. I was rushing around. But so you know.
I was just going over how we have the school picture dates for each of the middle schools coming up and the high school also. There's the back to school night for the high school, which again, like I said previously, we're trying to support a lot, get a lot of students to go to it, and hopefully their families as well. There's an early release coming up, like I said before, and then there's our picture day, the Blue Pride Palooza, and then there's the ACIPAC meeting, which is essentially what we're gonna do is we're gonna help set that up to get as many students to go like we are with other events, and kind of like, I don't know, kind of congregate around the idea of this new school being like a definite thing. Like that's something that we totally want to support going into this new school year. That's something that we've already talked with our committee about at each student council meeting, and that's something that we are trying to gain more support in going into this school year. And then I guess Dan, if you want to.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll just kind of what he said. So like what he said and what we're all trying to do, just reiterate it, is like, even though we're not going to be at that school, we still want people to be supportive of it, and like not just like, oh, we're not going to be there, like kind of bummed out, like be like Mr. Rooney like talked to us before, like the football team and all the other teams, soccer team. He was saying leave a legacy, so like we want to like leave a legacy, like we were like the big like we were support like generate like the main support for the school being built. So that's the first one, and so the green initiatives is like. So we got like the whole, it's not card. We got the cardboard like paper trays now, but so we don't really do much with it if we don't really recycle much, because I mean, what we've heard and like they say, oh, like my teacher's like, oh, we don't even recycle. We think that's kind of ridiculous. We have recycle bins. If we got green trays? There's like that whole thing. Like if we continue it, then there'll be like a real purpose to it. But if we're not, then it's kind of like, oh, we got paper trays now, but we're still putting it in the trash. But so.
That's our presentation for you guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you both, and I appreciate the two of you and your committee carrying on the previous initiative of the green progress towards the green schools, and taking progress that's already been made. But like you said, it's just one step, and to continue to build on prior success to make a greater difference. Kudos on that. Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Yeah, it's interesting. On the Massachusetts Association of School Committees listserv, there's been a big discussion about what do student representatives do. And I guess one of the big challenges is, unfortunately, sometimes this role becomes a bit of a tokenism. Like you sit there, you give your report, and it's nice, but we think you're capable of so much more. I think this goal of generating support for the new high school could be an outstanding opportunity for you, just as your personal growth and development, but also for the district. I don't know of any better ambassadors for this project than the students. People will listen to you in ways they won't listen to us. And I think that if you can bring this to be the focus, I think this is a really tangible example of what a student advisory committee can do. So I'm really encouraged to hear that's a goal, and would like to support you in any way we possible, so that way you can achieve that, because I think it's really ambitious, but it's also incredibly important. And thank you for taking on, and Principal Rooney, thank you for supporting them and guiding them to this goal. So very excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Eden and Dan, thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you over the remainder of the school year. Thank you. Moving on to our business agenda. First, we will have an introduction by Assistant Superintendent Regan.
Thank you, Chairman Withers. First, I'd like to introduce Ms. Kim Jansen as the K-12 Education Technology Coordinator. Come on up. Hello. So Kim just started her 21st year with us here in the Attleboro Public Schools. She was a special education teacher, a technology teacher, the assistive technology coordinator, and along the way, she has always participated in different committees and councils, including the lab, while she's been here with us in Attleboro. But beyond that, she is passionate about infusing technology into our classrooms and being an integral member of the coordinator staff that we currently have here with us in Attleboro. So, Kim?
Thank you. I had to write some things down. I have to say that I'm bubbling over with enthusiasm about this job. It's really, truly what I had envisioned myself doing for the past 15 years. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I really am hoping, and I look forward to being part of such a passionate and creative and innovative coordinator team, as Lori was talking about. We all are a data person, our humanities person, our STEAM person. We're all in one spot together. So it's really exciting to be able to share ideas in that forum. And as Miss Regan has, or Assistant Superintendent Regan has talked about, I look forward to further infusing technology into the classrooms. I have to say that I like to call myself pre-K through 12 plus coordinator, because I want equal access to technology for all, where every student has a voice, and we're employing the use of some UDL practices, Universal Design for Learning. So that's one of the foundations that I'm working with. I'd also like to further enhance the professional development of our staff to get us all on the same playing field as far as technological or educational technology backgrounds. And another piece that I find essential is to look to other avenues as far as digital communication. Our website, for example, I think there's so many other benefits to digital communication that I'd like to tap into. So I'm super excited, and I want to thank everyone in the room. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, and I look forward to hearing about your progress in the position. You know, the continued increased integration of technology in the classroom, as you mentioned, is really vital to modernizing education in Attleboro and continuing to make the strides. So this really is a crucial position. So wish you the best of luck and look forward to hearing about all the great things that are being done. Any other questions, Mrs. Scales?
Just a comment. You know, when you said it, I'm embarrassed to say that when this came before our subcommittee, it didn't really dawn on me with the title K through 12, because you're right, it is pre-K through 12 plus, and we have to remember that. I know that you guys do a great job to remember that, but even if it's in the title, to remember that too. So thank you for pointing that out, because that is very important. So thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Larson?
I can't let it go. I can't let you sit at the other side of the table and not say hello, first of all.
Hello.
I've had the pleasure of attending the lab meetings for the last few years, and Ms. Jansen's been a big part of that. And it's amazing to me how she had always been able to hook technology up to whatever the lab was doing. And it would happen by the next time we met. I mean, there was never a delay. Sometimes I think she was doing it as we were talking, and she was doing it on the fly, because all of a sudden it would just pop up on the screen. So I can't imagine having a better person in this position. And congratulations.
Thank you. You're gonna make me cry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
At this time, I'll hand it over to Ms. Medeiros to introduce Diane Diorio, who is our new ELC coordinator, and Tim Trotzavino, who is our new Assistant Special Education Director. And Ms. Veronica Leonard is here as well to support Diane.
Good evening.
Evening.
So before I introduce, we introduce Diane, I just want to thank the interview team and acknowledge them coming in over the summer. We had Renee Kingsley, an ELC teacher, Lauren Mulready, an ELC teacher, Mitch Witherall, a team chair, because of the importance of transitioning from pre-K to K. And Veronica, myself, and Chris Wentz, the associate principal at Thatcher. The team looked at the candidates, really the questions, developed questions that what we were looking for in an ELC coordinator, really weighed the pros and cons, and we interviewed 3 candidates. Diane quickly rose to the top. She is an Attleboro resident. She's been working in Central Falls for 15 years. She's has extensive experience as a teacher in early education, pre-K to 2. She's a nationally board certified early childhood educator. And when she left Central Falls, she was actually the early childhood coordinator there. So she comes, what impressed the team was her experience, and particularly her vision for our youngest learners and how that aligned to our vision and our mission here in Attleboro for all our students. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Veronica.
Well, it's been wonderful getting to know Diane in the last few weeks. We have been working with our ELC staff to ensure a smooth transition, and we also are looking forward to a very successful school year.
Thank you. So we'll turn it over to Diane.
Okay. I also wanted to thank the interview team. They were, I really appreciated the confidence they have placed in me and trusting me with this position. I understand the importance of it. I take it very seriously, the importance of this position. And also, the assistant superintendent for the support and everything that I've gotten as I've begun my transition. As I began to look at sorry, my mind is the strategic plan. Because I'm trying to think of the words I use. It's different in different districts. So the strategic plan that is presented before me for the district, I'm excited to see that the things that I'm seeing in there align quite closely to my own personal beliefs and philosophies of education. So that was exciting to see, particularly the community piece. As an Attleboro resident myself, what better opportunity for me to be able to jump right into the school and be able to, jump right in and get going with the preschoolers. At the Early Learning Center, we do have that unique opportunity to start right at the very beginning. And this is the children's first experience in a school setting. A lot of these parents, this is their first experience in a public school since they've been in school. So I think we have a great opportunity to build that foundation, build those building blocks, get that going, so they have a very a prosperous education throughout the system. So it was exciting for me to see that. And I hope to continue the fine reputation that the Early Learning Center has had, and hopefully to streamline and maybe tweak some things and move forward in a positive light. So I'm really excited as I begin my tenure here.
Thank you. Mr. Quinn, did you have?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Welcome. As a parent of a child who went to the ELC for services, I've seen firsthand the impact, the positive impact that it has on children's development at a very important time in their growth. So the work that you're doing is obviously vital to our youngest children. So we look forward to your success and hearing from things that you're doing over at the ALC. I think lots of times the public doesn't realize the great work that's done over there and that we offer those services, but it really is important, and it's as nationally we move more towards pre-K programs as well, it's going to become even more prevalent. So best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Tim? So before I formally introduce Tim, I again want to acknowledge and thank the interview team. We had a good representation of the different stakeholders in special education. So in addition to myself, there was Angela Ferrara as a parent, Jean Hickox from the high school, Allison Washington from Coelho, Kristen DeVoya from Studley, Lauren Mulready from the ELC, and Chris David as an OT representing related services from Willett and Hill Roberts. We reviewed, the team reviewed the applications, really developed questions that captured what we were looking for in an assistant director. And then again, weighed the pros and cons of each candidate. So Tim quickly rose to the top of our, we had a couple of internal candidates and external candidates as well. Tim's been in Attleboro since 1986. He started as a teacher of the visually impaired. He became the out-of-district coordinator. And one of the things, there were three things that really rose to the top when we were interviewing Tim. And one of them was his connections with community partners and community agencies. The team felt that was a real strength for him. It was something that closely aligned with our strategic plan, and his ability to bring that knowledge to our in-district staff was a great strength for him. The ability to, many districts don't have this. When an out-of-district person leaves, a new person comes in, they're kind of on their own. There really isn't any transition or support. By having Tim as the assistant director, he could transition and support a new team chair into that role and support families through that process. And then finally, his vision for all students certainly aligned to our vision that we created for special ed last year, that aligned to our district vision and mission. So I'd like to introduce Tim as our new Assistant Director of Special Education in the Attleboro Public Schools.
Thank you, Yvonne. I want to say I'm really excited to be in this position. I've been in Attleboro for a very long time, and I've seen a lot of different changes in Attleboro, and I think that having the opportunity to work in this capacity as an assistant director makes sense for me, it makes sense for the district, and I'm really excited about that. I've had the pleasure to work with a variety of very talented both general education and special education staff, both as a teacher myself, and I was an itinerant throughout the district. I worked in every building in the district with the visually impaired kids that we had at the time. I had the opportunity as a student services coordinator, both as a case manager for Thatcher Elementary and Hyman Fine and Hill Roberts, and now as well as out of district. And this is going to be a very exciting year for me. I like the plan that the district has put forward. It makes sense to me. It makes sense for the services to our kids. It makes sense for programming to hopefully get more out-of-district kids back home and get that development moving along. And it also makes sense from the standpoint of the compliance that we have to work under as administrators with the Department of Ed. So it's would lie to you if I would say I'm not nervous about it, but we're off to a good start. I've been working with Kristen on out of district. I'm still heavily involved with that, but I've also been in every building so far this week and last week, and formulating a schedule and working very closely with the team chairs. So it's going to be a very bountiful, fun year for me.
Thank you. And nervous is good. That means you care and are invested. So that's that's
Yeah.
good to hear. Your experience in the district, I think, is encouraging, and your clear understanding and alignment with the vision and mission of the schools is encouraging to hear, and I think will serve you and the department well. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Skills.
Yep, I just want to say congratulations. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for us. I understand that you have all the institutional knowledge that is so necessary for the position. And I just know that you're so very well respected by your peers. So
Thank you.
congratulations.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Geddes.
Congratulations to all three, well, to the new person and the other two new position people. But I think just generally speaking, I want to congratulate the administration for continuing to build an incredible staff within the district, tap into the talented people that are already here, putting them into key positions where they can succeed, and that obviously leading to our students succeeding. It's a very exciting time for our schools. We have some very talented people here, so keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on the agenda, we have our MSBA Attleboro High School project update. Not much in the way of update this meeting. I think since last time there was a meeting at the state where the dialogue continued as to reimbursement for some items such as CTE space and other issues that we're having some back and forth with as to how much the state will reimburse us, and that dialogue's ongoing and will continue. The state was receptive to a lot of our points that we've made that have been addressed publicly, and as we continue to hear from them, we'll fill the committee and the public in on that. But at this point, the meeting was had and the dialogue has started. The architects continue to refine the plans, make them more detailed as we enter the schematic phase. I anticipate after the next SBC meeting, or perhaps the one after that, you'll start to see more images that are more exciting as they show more details of the building. And I think it'll really start to build the excitement as to what this building and this project could look like. And so I think that's something to look forward to over the next month. Otherwise, the timeline remains the same as it's been. We're still on track for that December board meeting before the MSBA to get the final approval. And at that point, we'll continue to move forward. But there hasn't been much since our last meeting. But the train continues on the tracks, moving forward as it should. Any questions?
When is
Skills.
the next school building committee meeting?
Next Wednesday, 20th. Yeah,
In this room at,
in this room at 5:30.
thank
And
you.
usually they have the municipal building commission meeting beforehand for a few minutes, and then the SBC starts right after that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Quinn?
And will the architect and project manager be available for questions?
Yeah, they're at all those meetings, and generally speaking, the SBC does a good job of, if there are people who come, it's a public meeting, people who come who have questions, they'll recognize the people in the audience and answer any questions they have.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Sawyer, anything else I should add?
You covered it.
I have something to add, actually. Mr. Sawyer and I will be, Superintendent Sawyer and I tomorrow will be at the Attleboro High Alumni Association meeting at 6 o'clock at the Cable Studios, AACS Studios, to make a presentation to them about the project. On Wednesday afternoon at the Attleboro Rotary Club, there will be a contingent making a presentation, as well as Mr. Geddes, Superintendent Sawyer will be there. And then Wednesday night, Mr. Geddes, you're going to be at the high school, I believe, as well. So, when people ask if anything's being done to get out in the community, those efforts are ongoing, and we have 3 such events this week. Thank you. Next on the agenda, Superintendent Sawyer, academic year opening update.
Thank you. The start of any school year is always one that's filled with nervous optimism. Throughout my career, the end of August always brought on a certain amount of anxiousness as you prepare for the next school year. I have to share with you that being the person who's now ultimately responsible for the opening of 9 schools that serves the needs of 6,000 children has really changed my sense of what there is to be nervous about. And I'm happy to report that we have started another school year, and I would say done so successfully. It is important to acknowledge that this year, like any year, is not without its problems. The complexity of the organization, the fact that we go from being basically closed to having 6,000 kids the next day is going to always cause trouble, especially when we're dealing with moving targets in terms of enrollment. We have people registering for school even after school starts. So there are a lot of things that complicate the effort, but so I don't think that we'll ever live in a world where there isn't any problems, but from my perspective, the real measure is, are the scope of the problems enough that we can manage them, and are we timely in addressing the problems that do arise, as they surely will? And I believe on both measures this year was a success. We did have some issues, but we were able to manage them and address them quickly. And right now, all the buildings report that we are humming and focused on learning, and that's really what's important. The principals all reported that from their perspective this year was smoother than last. I think that that's a tribute to their dedication. Everyone worked very hard this August to try to make this year better than last year, and we will learn from the lessons that emerged this year and try to make next year better as well. But here to provide some specifics about our various areas, I'm going to invite up the rest of my team to brief you a little bit about their areas in particular. We'll start to my right.
Okay, so we are still registering new students. As of today, we are still registering students. During central registration, we welcomed 144 new students to the district, and since central registration closed, we have welcomed approximately another 120 students.
When does central registration close?
It closed about 2 weeks before, so it closed the first week of August. And then we had about 2 weeks before school started, and then once school started. Since the close of school in June, we've had 247 students transfer either to another local public school in state or out of state. We have a pretty close match, 264 students in and 247 students who have transferred out of the district. As for class sizes, across the district, class sizes are above what we would recommend for the long-range target that we have set. But as we are working toward our goal, we have identified specific targets that we would like to hit. So for kindergarten, that's 25, first grade, 26, and for grades 2 through 12, it's 28. The good news is that we met our short-term or short-range target or goal for elementary K through 5. And we reported in the past that grade 7 was over, and we were able to accommodate for that. And grade 6 is over about 1 student per grade, and in a couple cases there are 2. Attleboro High School is a large and complicated place. Currently, right now, we have so many diverse offerings for our students, which allows us to be able to meet the needs of many, many students. So we could probably schedule the building for everyone to be at 28, but then we would have to cut back on some of the offerings that we do have for our students. So with that said, that's where we are with our class sizes and registration in the building.
How does class size compare to last year?
It's about the same. Our enrollment is steady. Amazingly enough, we were just talking about that before we came in here tonight. And just like we said, we had 264 students coming in, and we had 247 students going out. And as the year progresses, we'll have more students that will leave us to match the students that we have coming in.
Any other questions for Assistant Superintendent Regan? Thank you.
And let's head down to the end.
Sure. So for about 300 of our students, the new school year actually started on July 5th with ESY. So I want to acknowledge and thank our staff who worked over the summer, the 5 weeks in ESY. It makes it much easier when our familiar staff is working with some of our most fragile students, and they walk in and there's a familiar staff member there. So I want to thank them. I also want to thank families for continuing to support ESY, and we had some really good enrollment this year, making sure that their students attended. I also want to thank families for continuing to collaborate with us. We struggled to find a lifeguard. They actually found a candidate for us who was actually great. So I really want to acknowledge their continued collaboration with us. So with that said, for teachers, we're pretty much in special ed, all our positions are filled except for a 0.5 at the high school. We've struggled with that position. We're actually going to repost that to see if we get some more candidates. The only other real difficult position that we have is BCBA, who's on maternity. I'm actually interviewing someone through a contracted vendor tomorrow morning for that position. With that said, we have about 52 new students who came in with IEPs this year. One of them was pre-K, 2 out of district. It's a wash. 2 came in, 2 left for out of district. about 15 at the high school, and then the other 34 were K-8. The majority of them came in after central registration closed. I mean, 10 of them came in to the high school like in 2 days, once the paperwork was cleared and all of that. So it's pretty much a wash when you start to look at the numbers. What we get in pretty much transfers out as well. I was in the majority of buildings last week for opening day. The first 2 days, things looked really smoothly. Our special educators were establishing routines with our students. Participated in ELC. Our last group of kids coming in on Thursday morning, the AM session, there was some crying, but I'm happy to report it wasn't the students. It was the families and parents. So it was actually a really smooth transition when Diane and Veronica and I walked through classrooms at 9 o'clock, and kids were establishing routines, and really no criers or hangers on or anything like that. It went so smoothly that Thatcher had a fire drill on Friday afternoon, and for some students in the PM session, that was actually their first experience in school, and they transitioned out really smoothly and transitioned back in. So I really, it's been a very smooth opening for our special education students and our staff.
Any questions?
So from a human resources perspective, different challenges than last year, but still challenging this year. Overall, we have 763 employees. That excludes coaches and substitutes. But we hired 50 new employees over the summer for the start of this school year. So again, different challenge, a good one, but it was Lori, or Assistant Superintendent Regan, and I meet with every new employee before they come in, and so that scheduling is challenging. Of that 50, 32 were teachers. 10 of those were new positions. The rest were retirements, resignations, non-renewals. And then we had a sprinkling of 8 paras, some clerks and ABA, bus drivers, things like that, to finish out the 50. We currently still have 18 vacancies. Again, sprinkled out throughout categories. We have about 4 teachers, about 8 paras. These are due to late resignations or hard to fill. There's science and math positions that are challenging to fill at the high school. So overall, I think we have some employees or some candidates for those positions in the works now. So I anticipate that those positions will be filled hopefully by the end of the month, with the exclusion of the one hard to fill special ed that Yvonne referenced. And that's it.
Mr. Geddes?
Just to reiterate, we have 50 new staff, but
Staff.
only 10 new
Correct.
10 new positions. So
Correct.
80% of those were just filling people that we had
Retirements.
last year.
Resignations.
Just wanted to
Yep. Clarify.
that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Gwen?
This is kind of a combination question for Ms. Regan and Ms. Singer. So those classes that are not have a teacher, where we have like a day-to-day sub filling those positions, or the students in classes that are going to be reshuffled, or what are the logistics of teaching positions that are not filled at this point?
Some of them are filled with long-term subs at the moment.
Okay.
That's that's what we're doing with those right
And
now.
with like department chairs or other teachers kind of filling in
Mhm.
with the
Yes.
curriculum materials to
Yep.
make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Else? Mr. Geddes?
Sorry. Also, for both of you, so we have 10 new staff, but class sizes are still about the same. Can you explain that? Because most of the new positions, I should say, are specialists, correct? And so,
Yes. Yes, five of those 10 are the elementary physical education teachers that we hired for contractual reasons. And then there's a new phys ed teacher at the high school, a new ELA teacher in grade 7 at Brennan, as well as another classroom teacher
Grade
in
2.
grade 2. Yeah.
So I guess because I can see someone saying, well, they've hired 10 new staff, how come classes aren't smaller?
Mhm.
It's because the classes are in different locations with different educators, and so that's why class may not be smaller, but we're giving teachers more time for planning and better academics that way. Thank you.
And in some cases where we knew, like the grade 7 example, we knew we needed another grade 7 teacher, so we were able to plan for that and make sure we had someone in place.
Right. And by them being about the same, we're talking, average of 28 and a half down to about 28 maybe, or something like that. So it's not, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Furtado?
Mr. Chairman, unlike my esteemed colleagues, when you have 300 in and 300 out, that is not a wash. That's 600 new. From a transportation perspective, that new staff down there really worked their tails off to get the buses where they're supposed to be at the start of school. I thought they did an outstanding job. We had no major hiccups. We had a couple of minor hiccups. We had about 350 to 400 families enroll in fee-for-service within the frozen period, sort of mid-August to mid-September. We processed them internally right after the start of school. Bloom had to arrange for K and ELC pickup, so they started processing those fee-for-service families that came in very late toward the end of last week and the beginning of this week. So they should be on buses very shortly, and the system is working as it should be working.
Mr. Storrs?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Knowing that we had so many last-minute signups for transportation, is there a root cause that you saw?
It was typical, just more, and so when you hear the reasons the families are giving, they're pretty standard. We need to do a better job communicating, find a different venue for communicating, and different avenues for communicating, broaden that effort.
Diversify the communication.
Yeah. And the staff has some ideas already. Again, they're still digesting the start of the year, but we have a sort of a work plan going forward, and that's number one in that plan is to develop a communication plan that's going to help. We're going to start fee-for-service earlier this year, and we're also going to provide some night registration time for families who, are busy during the day.
Mr. Quinn?
Are you finding that of those people who are registering in the frozen period, are a large percentage of them basically renewals? Or is it an automatic renewal spot? So do you assume that a kid who's taking it, this year will probably take it next year if they qualify?
We had quite a few families say that they didn't realize they had to do it annually. Okay. So yes, they are from last year. Okay. We have, and we had, it's very odd, we have a much higher percentage of fee waivers in transportation this year, and yet the free and reduced numbers do not reflect that. So that's kind of an odd
we'll see conflict. Safety type situation?
No, circumstance and income.
Gotcha.
Are we reaching out to those families to make sure their needs are being met as far as school lunches?
Yeah, opportunity for school lunch, yes. That's we explain that pretty comprehensively when they come in requesting waivers. We've also had leadership team meetings where we've expressed to the principals their need to communicate that more effectively prior to October 1st.
Anything else on transportation questions? No? Capital projects?
All of the boilers but 2 have been commissioned, which means they operate, which is terrific. Still no equipment at Hill Roberts, which is very disturbing, and we're starting to talk to the vendor about not meeting the contractual requirements. Well, it is complete, and really, you obviously aren't going to notice it now with the air conditioning, but that media center is a really impressive change. And there's quite a bit of change at Studley as well. We've redone the gym from a paint perspective and installed a stage with new sound systems and lighting for those purposes, function purposes, so,
In the cafeteria, not the gym.
in the cafeteria, yeah.
So what remains to be done? Hill Roberts remains
Bill
to be
Roberts
done?
is the real, and
First
the
one.
Studley facade, which we knew about.
Other than that, we're on schedule.
Other than that, it's perfect, yeah.
Great. Questions on capital projects done over the summer? Mr. Quinn?
Life cycle for these projects, the issue of maintenance has come up quite a bit in other regards, but just wanted to,
Sure. The new heating systems that we've installed are very high efficiency boilers. They vent out through PVC piping. So I'm not sure that means anything to anybody, but the exhale from the boilers is basically just water vapor, and it is not hot. All of the heat goes into the buildings. These are relatively new pieces of equipment. They certainly should be fine for 30 years. Some people say more because they're stainless and don't have the hostile environments that the other boilers do. In addition to that, in all of the locations that didn't have it, we've installed variable drives for finer control of temperature and digital management for, again, finer building control of temperature. So, and link those if it was the case with air conditioners and air handlers. So the systems in all of the buildings are more comprehensive, will work much more efficiently and be longer lasting for that very reason.
and should net some sort of savings in terms
Will
of.
certainly net an operating savings.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Furtado, to report?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Superintendent Sawyer, anything further?
I'd just like to reiterate that a great number of people contributed to make this opening possible and to go as smoothly as it did, from OIT staff to building staff to administrators. A lot of people worked very, very hard to make this opening as successful as possible, and I certainly wish to acknowledge their efforts.
Thank you, and thank you all for what really so far has been from our operational standpoint, a smooth opening. And touching base with the superintendent the first week or so of school, asking him how everything was going, he would always ask if I'd heard anything. And the answer, still today is no. I haven't heard anything negative about the opening. By all accounts, from teachers and parents and families, it seems to have gone smoothly. So, thank you. That's a testament to a lot of hard work by a lot of people, but the 5 of you especially. So, thank you. Next on our business agenda, Assistant Superintendent Regan is going to update us on Grant.
Sure. I think Superintendent Sawyer wanted to start.
Okay.
Yeah, just to remind us all, one, community engagement is the third overarching goal of our strategic plan. And in many ways, it's the one where we need the most help as a school district. I think we know quite a bit about how to educate students. Not that there aren't things to be learned there too, but we have a pretty strong sense of what it is we want to do there, and I think we have a lot of the right people in place to help us get there. When it comes to community engagement, this is a bit of a new game for us. For most of my career, the school system in many ways was a fortress that sort of separated itself from the rest of the community, to our mutual detriment, in my opinion. And our strategic plan, I think, very intentionally is taking on that dynamic and is trying to fix that for the betterment of our students. But that, being said, it is important to acknowledge that it's not something we have a lot of experience with. And we were lucky to, over a year ago, to have Mr. Quinn point out to us that there was a grant available through Nellie Mae to get some support on community engagement. And so he helped us to apply for that grant, and what has been a long and arduous process. I am pleased to report that we were awarded in the final cohort in what was a very competitive grant. And a majority of the funds in this grant are really dedicated to the coaching that we're going to receive from experts on how to better engage the community. So I think that that's to great benefit to Attleboro and the Attleboro Public Schools. We're very excited to get this help and hope that it'll help us to do a better job. In working through the application process, we identified two of our staff members who Nellie Mae would like to be leads in this effort. They want a staff member, someone, boots on the ground, and they've identified Rebecca Halsey, who many of you are familiar with for all of her good work, and she's an appropriate choice in every way. And then they also want her to get some administrative support, and so Ms. Regan will be her co-lead. So they'll be leading the effort, and we'll be learning more as it unfolds. And to start that tonight, Ms. Regan will describe how this is all going to begin.
So we have an event that is scheduled for October 5th. It's in the Blue Pride Bistro from 8:30 to 3:30. We've sent out invitations to members of the school, the district, and the community to be a part of that. During this orientation meeting, you'll be asked to be part of the community coalition to write a community engagement plan, which we will implement over the next 2 years, and begin to start to establish some of the goals that were written as part of this. One of the goals is to improve access to learning by removing barriers to educational equity through our current systems and structures. Another goal is to increase participation and voice and shared leadership and collaboration amongst all of our stakeholders in the community. And our final goal is to build staff capacity to support inclusion and equity and diversity across the district. So we look forward to having our first event. Our coaches are from the Great Schools Partnership and Everyday Democracy, and Ms. Halsey and I actually have a meeting set up this week to meet with our coach for the first time, and he'll be getting us started as we prepare for the October 5th event.
Questions? Mrs.
How
Gills?
long is the grant for? How long is the grant?
So it's for 2 years.
2 years, okay.
And what's the amount of the grant?
For this year, it's $15,000.
Great. Any other questions? We look forward to the event and getting updates on the progress that's being made, so congratulations.
Thank you. We look forward to it.
That concludes our business agenda. Moving on to our minutes from our August 21st, 2017 meeting. Minutes were circulated with your packets. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda items. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $4.18 from the Cooler Foundation to Hill Roberts Gifts donation line.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation of an engineering plotter with an estimated value of $1,500 from the Pear Corporation in Foxborough.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $3,000 from the Jim S. Lim Foundation for the 2017-2018 Math and Science prizes to be deposited into the gifts and donation line.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept the donation in the amount of $1.65 from the Cooler Foundation to the AHS gifts donation line.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $200 from Michael Crowley, a.k.a. Crafty Basketball LLC, to be deposited into the Attleboro Public Schools use of building account.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That concludes our consent agenda. Moving on to subcommittee reports. Mr. Larson with the Finance and Budget update.
Thank you, Chairman. The Finance and Budget Subcommittee met September 6th. We reviewed the monthly reports with Mr. Furtado, highlighting a few things that we need to monitor over the course of the year. We had an MSBA update. We reviewed the capital improvement projects that Mr. Furtado just outlined for the committee. going along with that, there'll be more of an in-depth presentation in the next couple of months, once the projects are all done. And the subcommittee may actually do some road trips as part of their meetings and go out and visit some of these projects that we've done to get a better handle on what's been involved and see what we've been spending our money on. There were no votes taken, and our next meeting will be posted. I don't have the date in front of me.
Will be posted in the normal course, I assume, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Next, we have open forum. Is there anyone here who would like to address the school committee at open forum? That'll close open forum. Next, we'll go into executive session. The Attleboro School Committee will convene an executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections A2 and 3, to discuss strategy with respect to negotiations with union personnel and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee. The school committee will not reconvene in open session. With motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Storrs?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Withers, yes. Mrs. Scales?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Geddes?
Yes.
Mr. Sawyer?
Yes.
All right, we'll take a 3-minute recess and reconvene in executive session.
Let's see, let's still